this is actually from my perspective as a co-chair, this is our inaugural speaker series because I haven't gotten moved as quickly as possible. But I am delighted to welcome Kerry Moynihan, my co-chair, to talk about, I guess we're going to talk about the power of networking, right? And maybe how you might want to pay as much attention to building your network as building your resume or as building your skill set. But Kerry, first, why don't you introduce yourself, tell your connection with the college, tell what you do, tell all that stuff.
Yeah, so the short form is I went to UVA in '77. I took a year off, hitchhiked around the country a few times, my dog and myself, and thought about going to film school. And came back to UVA and said, hell with it, I'm going to be an English literature major, which is sort of what I was cut out to do. And worked around town and sort of put my way through school, tending bar primarily, and at Fellini's and Miller's and the Virginian and places like that. And we started a music business when I was fourth year. I was social chairman of my fraternity for 3 years. And we started a music business that became Red Light Productions. So Corin Capshaw was my partner and became a billionaire, I believe. But I have no regrets. And anyway, I left town in '84, went to New York, got in the executive search business serendipitously, wound up going to Wharton, did a degree in finance to augment the Shakespeare and Milton. and have been doing that for a long time, 30 years, and then have also done a bunch of deal-oriented things. And I've been very fortunate that I guess I'm, LinkedIn perhaps has lessened my skill set, but I just am a natural connector of people, and it has served me well. And when you do it there's sort of a Zen Buddhist aspect to it. When you do it without hope of recompense, you get paid back in ways that you cannot foresee.
So we talked about this a little bit, that really, and maybe it's different nowadays. Maybe people do focus on teaching the value of a network. It's certainly not in high school. They don't teach about that. And I just don't know how much there's a focus in college about that. But tell a little bit about that story that you shared with me about your professor and your speaking of of regrets, right? Like that would have been a nice networking opportunity potentially to take advantage of.
I had two great professors, legendary professors at UVA. One has passed on. I don't know if the other is still around, but Irby Cawthon, from whom I took Milton and Shakespeare and, drama from the Restoration to the 19th century, and then Steve Railton. And Steve may still be around. He's probably about 75. But anyway, both of them said to me, you're a talented guy. If you're a good writer, if there's anything we can do, and kind of trying to talk me into going to grad school in English Lit, and I really didn't have an interest in that. But I was an idiot, an absolute idiot, because they're both phenomenally great professors, and I should have said, "Hey, I'd welcome your help." But I was such a hardhead that again, I put my way through school. I was, again, I once hitchhiked across the country with $5 in my pocket from San Francisco to New York. So I was very self-determining. But if I could give advice to the younger version of me or of my kids or any young people, take advantage of it, because it's not immoral. And as a friend of mine, a fraternity brother hired one of my kids to do an internship in an investment bank. And he said, I said, hey, thanks. He said, hey, it's not nepotism if somebody actually has talent. So, recognize your talents and don't be afraid to use those. And I do this all the time now, where I'll help young people and say, okay, I'm gonna get you to the door. You have to knock on the door, and then you have to walk over the threshold. But I'll get you to the door. And I didn't recognize that when I was a kid.
Well, and you even, I think, you felt like it was cheating, right? You wanted
Yeah.
to do it on your own, right? Is that how do you, I mean, self-reliance and being self-determined and is great. I mean, those are valuable skills, right? But how do you teach the either people who are still in school or recent graduates or old people like you and me? How do you teach them that that is as much of a talent and as much of a skill to be developed as being a good writer or being good with technology or what have you? I mean, you do it now. Tell a little bit about what that means that you do it, that you do this all the time now. How does connecting and networking play into your life now?
Well, take the early part of that. I felt like it was cheating, almost, like to take advantage that I had some verbal fluency and natural charm, if you will, and ability to connect with people. I always have. And I thought that's giving yourself unfair advantage. But over time, and particularly with the long career in the executive search business, where we're helping companies recruit senior management for good-sized companies, you realize that connectivity and ability to make a connection is critical, because people like to do business with people they like and trust, right? I mean, it's so basic. And if you show your humanity and are not afraid to be out there with humor and self-deprecation and tell people a little bit about who you are, you earn their trust without trying. It's not like you're on the make, like you're hustling them or anything. It's just like, here's who I am, you either like me or you don't. And I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and everybody who listens to this should realize that. But I can't tell you the number of times, Fraser, that business came to me because I've been honest with people. Little examples, of if somebody's a candidate in an executive search, and you keep them apprised, say you're no longer a candidate, and here's why. You give them some career advice. Holy cow, a third of my business over many years has come from those people, because that's apparently that's so unusual. Because they don't, people say, hey, I never heard about, I was a candidate for X, Y, or Z, and I never even heard back from the people, versus I go back to them and say, hey, this job has a big international component, and you didn't talk in the interview about the time you spent living in Zambia, for example, directionally, that's correct. And I can't tell you the number of times and how you really can forge genuine friendships through business just by being human and by being honest.
So there's a couple of things I want to unpack there. I mean, it sounds to me like you're talking about very basic, very authentic, very organic, not just skills, but traits that people sort of start with, right? I mean, all we're really talking about is treating people the way you like to be treated and treating people with respect and caring about other people. Now the other piece of it is also, so I'm feeling like we're talking about things that you have to unlearn, right? To some extent, people have learned that, like you're saying, it's a game. You need to game. What's in it for me? There's a limited amount of resources. You got to manage your time. If the person can't help you or whatever, then you have to move on. And it's interesting because the thing that you talked about with regards to networking, which is arguably a very, the thing that you didn't do is you didn't take the very mercenary approach to your professors, right? So I don't know, is it a situation where your natural desire to be authentic and good actually kept you from asking for something from your professors? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I guess so. Again, that it felt like you were taking advantage of skills other people didn't have, and for your own gain versus pure merit. But as time has gone on, I can't tell you the number of people that have become true friends. I won't name names here, but I got asked to do a CEO search for a venture capital-backed company. And one of the investors, and it was a sort of consortium of them, but one of the investors, I'm going to get choked up here. His son died. Senior year of college, brilliant kid. And he had a sort of a Len Bias episode where he did coke for the first time and it killed him. And it was right before Christmas. And I drove 185 miles to go to the funeral, the wake. And my client, now my friend, couldn't believe that I'd done so. I said, that's what you do. When somebody's in trouble, you throw your arm around them, right? We're friends to this day. Came to my wedding. We cooked dinner for at each other's houses. And that's probably, 18 years ago, something like that. And there's nothing that guy wouldn't do for me. And it wasn't that I did anything extraordinary.
Right. Well, as I said, I think there's a couple of things that are really important, right? One is this becoming the type of person, or I'm not even becoming, allowing the part of you that is the type of person.
And let people know it a little bit instead of saying, I'm totally uptight and, so on, and show humanity.
Right. And then the second part of it is to recognize that one of the things that is part of humanity is wanting to help other people. And I think that's where what's crazy about the networking piece is, if you I mean, you can be sitting right next to somebody and not know that what you have could transform their experience, could help them out, unless they share it, unless they ask. And I think about it with parents and kids, right? Like the kids that the kids I taught when I was a teacher, or the siblings of my, or not siblings, I guess the siblings of my daughter is my child, but the classmates of my child, my friends and their children, you want to help them out. And so, but if you don't know what your professors are like, if you don't know what your coworkers are about, if you don't know people, then you're depriving them of the opportunity to help you, and help you. And again, not take advantage of them, but allow them to do what makes all of us come alive, which is to be of service.
And it's and it helps to listen, it helps to observe, so to speak. I could tell you all kinds of stories. I was once in a cab in New York. I grew up in New York, and my wife, who went to UVA, had just graduated from business school at Columbia, and we went down to a restaurant in Brighton Beach in Brooklyn, which is very Russian, and so you get 28 different kinds of fermented fish and a bottle of vodka for every 4 people. And so anyway, we were in high spirits, and we came back up to the Upper West Side where we lived, and the folks in the cab had all just finished their exams and were woohoo, and they were mooning other people on Broadway and doing Chinese fire drills at the stop sign. And in New York, the cabbies have their name emblazoned on their license, and I was up front, and I saw this guy's name was Ibrahim Yoruba. I said, "So, you're from Nigeria, aren't you?" He said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Are you from Lagos?" He said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Are you Yoruba or Igbo?" I said, obviously I knew his name was Yoruba. It was Yoruba, with the 2 dominant tribes. And we'd had friends who were missionaries in Nigeria way back. And all these people doing all this crazy stuff of moving people and jumping out at lights. And he grabbed my hand and said, "You are the most intelligent passengers we've ever had in my cab in my whole time here." So just the basic connection, if you know where somebody's from, or are willing to help them, and in that case, tip them extravagantly, you'll do okay.
But that means that all the other people got the benefit of that. It washed away the sins of all the other people in the cab, right?
Something like that.
So what do you think? I mean, Kerry, if you're giving, I mean, again, we're talking about basic things. We're talking about taking an interest in people, being kind to people. One of the things that though I am what I'm keying in on is believe that there are people out there who do want to help you in the same way that you are a person who wants to help other people. I think sometimes that's a problem, right? We think of ourselves, we're like, gosh, I would love for somebody to give me an opportunity to help them. I'd love to be of service. I'd love to, if somebody asked me for a recommendation, or if somebody, I mean, I don't mean like a teacher recommendation. If somebody asked me for a referral, or if somebody came to me and asked me for a piece of advice, right? I would love to be able to offer that. But you have to then not forget that other people are human too, and they would love to be of service to you.
Yeah.
But to your point, you've been in this field working with people for 30 years. Have you seen people that sort of do it well and do it poorly? And by that, I mean that are on the make, are selfish, are focused, and then other people who really do take advantage. I don't want to say take advantage, but really people who are good at that balance of authenticity, but also being open to help and asking for help. I mean, from your experience.
Yeah, and I mean, yes, and I'm old enough that, Fraser, that I'm very good at scoping out who's who, and I just don't deal with people in the former category. Don't need to. I don't care how much money is involved. Not interested in dealing with people that I don't respect and that I don't like and that I don't trust. And so, and if you are helpful, again, it's a Zen thing. It comes back to you in different ways. And I'll have to send you a story I wrote, which is based on a true family situation. And my grandparents were all immigrants from Ireland and from Italy. And my dad's dad was a New York City cop for many years. And he was walking a beat in Harlem in the 1920s and stopped a car. The lights were off, and there were 4 black guys in the car. The guy driving was a minister, had a collar. Reverend Walker, license registration. You're driving without your lights on. Be careful. And he finishes his tour of duty. And it goes to the station house, and the sergeant says, "Moynihan, there was your preacher in to see about you. Go see the captain." And my grandfather thought, I was nice as pie to this guy as I could be. And goes in and said, the captain says, "Did you stop a Reverend Walker?" "Yeah." He said, "Well, he drove by here and commended you personally on your courteous treatment," which unfortunately says that he wasn't used to that from New York's finest in the 1920s. Time goes on, and he worked in the vice squad. And so this story didn't come out till he was almost 2 years, till he was 90 years old. And a buddy of his says, "Dan, would you like to go to the fights at the Garden tonight?" "Sure." And there in the lobby of the old Garden, 47th and 8th, was the great, the play The Great White Hope. Mm-hmm. Jack Johnson, bald head. He'd been, he was married to white women, and that didn't go over too well in 1915, and was, trumped up charges on Mann Act violations. Anyway, the New York PD said this guy got the short ends of the stick, and he was making book in the Garden lobby. Hard to miss. 6'3", shaved head, yeah. White spats, immaculately dressed. And so Pop's buddy, McGillicuddy, says, "I'd like you to meet Jack Johnson." He said, "Well, Johnson said, I think we've met before." He said, "I think I would remember that," my grandfather said. He said, "No, I was in the back of Reverend Walker's car some years ago." And they see the fights, and Johnson throws an arm over my grandfather's shoulder and said, "Dan, there's a horse called Danny Boy at Belmont tomorrow in the 5th. I'd look into it if I were you." My grandfather was no fool, borrowed all the money he could, put it on Danny Boy, and did very well. So I love that as sort of a Zen, if you do stuff, you're just human, it comes back to you. And the same thing, with the networking thing, do good stuff for people, send them things that are of interest to them, that show that you listened, right? Mortgage, I'll send you mortgage rates rise, or, there's a disparity between the mortgage business in Austin and in Denver, whatever.
Right.
Show, oh, well, he's actually thinking of me. And it's just, it goes a long way.
Right. And it's interesting. I mean, I think sometimes about the things that are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do.
Yes.
And, if you can recognize, and it's the great thing about all this stuff is that we have a laboratory of human experience in ourselves. All you really have to do is say, what do you appreciate? Do you appreciate the thank you note that you get? Do you appreciate when somebody remembers your name? Do you appreciate when somebody asks about your experience, or somebody offers sincere piece of advice after listening to your experience, or takes an interest in your career, or takes an interest in your goals? Do you like that? Does that make you feel closer to that person or farther from that person?
Fraser, that is, I'm going to write that one down. The laboratory of human experience within ourselves. That is fantastic.
See, that was a very nice thing you just said.
You could do a self-help. You could get a TV series of self-help.
No, see, I know Kerry's tricks. He's just conning me. He just gave me a compliment. Do you see?
No, that's good. I'm telling you, that's good. That's good.
So, all right, parting thoughts. Do you, is there anything in terms of cultivating that habit? Let's just say people are listening to this and they're like, all right, that's basic stuff, but maybe they're hearing it in a different way. How can you sort of jumpstart that part? And I think there's two parts. I really do, even though they're probably connected. One is the allowing yourself to be a little bit more open, allowing yourself to connect with people, rather than thinking that everybody's doesn't care. Nobody cares, and nobody's going to care about you. And then the second is, how can you open the door? I think of it like Aladdin and his genie. How can you, you have a genie in front of you, you have a bottle, but if you don't ask, you don't get, right? So how would you recommend 3 pieces of advice? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
3 pieces of advice to help somebody jumpstart that part that they might have been taught it's rude to ask for things. They might have been taught nobody wants to know about your vulnerabilities. Nobody cares, nobody, whatever. How do you unlearn that? 3 pieces of advice.
One thing I do with like my executive coaching stuff too is helping people understand the power of their own networks. So if you're looking for a new career opportunity or something, prioritize who are the A's and B's in your own network. And this isn't of who loves you and who is in a position of the ability to help you. The B's are people who love you but can't really help you, etc. And a lot of times people don't even realize this. It's like, oh my goodness, my fraternity brother is the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and instead of when you see them say, hey, just keep me in mind, say, oh, well, you're also on the board of XYZ Corporation. And so look at your own existing networks and make specific asks, because it isn't that people aren't inclined to help. They are, but they don't wake up every morning and say, hey, how can I make Fraser's life better? However, if you said to, people you shared a suite with at Lambeth, at UVA, hey, I would like to be introduced to XYZ person, they will do it. But you have to connect you have to, those old, in grade school, with the 2 columns and you have to draw the lines between them. Do that for them. Right. Do that for them. And it'll be enormous. I guess the other one is, stay engaged and try to help people, because they will think of you, and the little things, as you said, like I said about the executive search business, at the end of a project, I would send a note to everybody and say, this is who got the job. You didn't get the job. Here's why. It's like sending a thank you note after you've been to somebody's house. It's what mom and dad taught you to do. Just do that in business, and you'll be ahead of 99% of the people in the world. Seriously, it's so basic.
Well, and one thing that you said, I just wanted to amplify is, it's hard sometimes to go from 0 to 60, right? There's a book, I'm sure you've read him, if not this particular book, Harvey Mackay's book, How to Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty, or I'm sorry, Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty.
Okay.
And he's the guy who wrote Swimming with the Sharks Without Being
Oh,
Eaten
yeah.
Alive.
Okay.
But so this other book is about networking and what have you. And, digging your well before you're thirsty, you could think about it like, well, you want to cultivate a network, right? You want to build a network, but really what we're talking about is not building a network. It's about opening up that network. And the funny thing, like you're saying, is they like you, and they might even be in a position to help you, but they're not thinking every day. They're not waking up every day thinking, how can they make your life better? But the question is, are you thinking that way? What if you looked at your network and said, what could I do today to help out these people who like me? And whether they're in a position to help you or not, what if you just looked every day to thought, how can you help out your network? What you're doing.
Yeah. And number 3, I only give you 2. Number 3, which has been huge for me. And again, it's just sort of who I am, is introduce people who have common interests, and the multiplier effect on that is just enormous, because, and again, this is not to be too mercenary about it, but you people should know each other because you have some shared interest. And guess what? What happens then is they meet and they say, wow, this is great. And we do have these shared interests. And Fraser introduced us to each other. And isn't he a terrific guy? And you really didn't do anything extraordinary. It's not mercenary, but when something comes up, they'll think of you in a positive light. And what you do with that kind of networking is you build a mutually reinforcing network of people who say, hey, Fraser or Kerry is terrific. He introduced me to, Susie or Bob, and we've become lifelong friends. Mm-hmm. And who doesn't remember that?
Well, it's so funny. You think about, you just got married. It's the equivalent of being the person who introduced a husband and wife. And guess what? What's the question that people ask? How'd y'all meet?
Yeah.
You're part of the origin story forever.
That's a good origin story. I like it.
One thing I'll add to that is I have discovered I'm a man of no particular talents, and everybody that knows me will attest to that in great enthusiasm. I'm no particular talents, but however, I'm a great fiddler. No, but the thing that I do is that I notice things that are easy, and if I like things that are easy, so I'll do things that are easy. And I look at it and I say, what if we just reached out to these 20 people who all have common interests and invited them to meet each other? Yeah. Easy. And guys, if you're watching this, you're in the middle of it, because all I emailed Kerry on Friday. I think, of last
Yeah.
week or earlier this, probably 2 days ago.
2
And
days ago.
I said, Kerry, you have a good story to tell and you have good skills. Would you get on Zoom with me and talk for a little bit? And now what we've done, hopefully, is we had a conversation that may or may not be valuable to everybody, but maybe there's one person for whom it's valuable or to whom it's valuable. And all it took was thinking about something and then doing it. And that's what we're talking about, right? Send the thank you note, send the book that that reminds you of something that the person talked about. It's weird because the things that people teach you that feel really mercenary, right? Like, think about, stalk the person on social media and figure out what they like and send them. That's the same type of stuff that good people do and that loving people do. It's the same stuff. It's just coming at it from a different orientation or perspective. So it's not bad to do it. It's good to do it. It's just that bad people can also do it.
I just wished I had learned that early on and didn't think it was taking unfair advantage.
Yeah.
But and now I'm at the age where my friends' kids, I can help them, introduce them to internship opportunities and job opportunities and so on. And it's just, I was offered that and I didn't take advantage of it, and I should have. So parting message is, when make a specific ask, know the power of your own network, and just be a good person and show your humanity, and you will be wildly successful.
I love it. I love it. Kerry, if people who are watching this, and again, these could be people who are 20-year graduates, right? They could be doing whatever. You're in the executive search business. If people were interested in thanking you for sharing your message or asking for a piece of advice, could they reach out to you?
Yeah, email is great, and happy to do it. And again, it's there are many instances of good things coming from just how shall we say? I don't want to blow my own horn here, but being a person of trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been on boards, advisory boards, that's helped me economically. When somebody I put into a job decided to do something else, we did an assessment of his capabilities and did a strategic plan for a business and raised money, and done very well with that, building a business. Happy to do it. And I presume the audience are UVA grads, so we like to think that that's a select group. So
That's right. Awesome. Kerry, thank you so much. I'm going to send this over to you, but thank you for participating in our first speaker event of our term, at least. I know you were in your previous term, you had all kinds of speakers, but this is our first one for us.
Well, no, happy to do it. And I can help you. Hopefully I can help you with some of the other ones going forward. So even though I'm not in DC any longer, but in beautiful downtown Nashville, happy to be of help.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kerry.